Ladies and gentlemen, most people don't realize they're moving through life far slower than they could. They wake up, go through the same motions, follow the same patterns, and wonder why nothing changes. They blame circumstances, luck, or other people, never stopping to consider that the real problem is that they haven't even acknowledged their own pace. You can't correct what you refuse to notice. Awareness is the key that unlocks the possibility of acceleration. Until you become aware, you're like a driver cruising in first gear on a highway, completely unaware that you could shift higher and move faster toward where you want to be. The engine is capable, the road is open, but the driver doesn't realize they're holding themselves back. That's how most people live, unaware of their own untapped potential, unaware of the time they're losing, unaware that hesitation is costing them their dreams. Awareness isn't something you just stumble upon. It's something you must develop deliberately. It starts by stepping back and looking at your life without excuses. Ask yourself, how do I spend my time? How quickly do I make decisions? How often do I put things off? These are confronting questions, but they reveal where you're truly operating. You might think you're moving forward because you're busy, but being busy is not the same as being productive. You could spend an entire week on tasks that lead nowhere, all because you haven't stopped to ask if what you're doing is actually moving you toward your goals. Awareness forces you to measure your movement not by how much you do, but by how far you go. The moment you become aware, everything changes. You start noticing the little delays you've accepted as normal, like scrolling aimlessly on your phone for just a few minutes. That turn into an hour, like spending days thinking about a choice instead of making it, like rereading an email 3 times before sending it because you're afraid of how it will be received. These small hesitations seem harmless, but over time they add up to years of lost momentum. Life is not slowing you down. You are slowing yourself down without even realizing it. Awareness is like switching on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, you see all the obstacles you've been tripping over, and you can finally move around them instead of stumbling in the dark. One of the most powerful truths is that awareness alone can create an immediate shift in your energy. The moment you notice, I'm wasting time right now, you've already created a fork in the road. You can continue down the slow path you've been on, or you can decide to change course instantly. That decision point is where growth begins. It's not about guilt or shame, it's about ownership. You take responsibility for your pace, and that means you take responsibility for your results. People who are aware of their habits and their thinking patterns can adjust them in real time. And that adjustment is what allows them to move faster than everyone else who is still stuck on autopilot. Awareness also removes the illusion of time. Most people think they have more time than they do. They tell themselves they'll get serious tomorrow. They'll start after the weekend. They'll wait until the timing is right. This is the slow poison that keeps dreams buried. But when you become aware of how quickly weeks, months, and years pass, you start treating your time like the precious, limited resource it is. You stop wasting it on things that don't matter. You stop spending energy on people and situations that drain you. You stop letting trivial problems pull your attention away from your real mission. Instead, you focus with urgency, because you understand that every moment you spend going slow is a moment you never get back. Awareness sharpens your perception of opportunities. When you're moving through life unaware, opportunities can be right in front of you, and you'll miss them because you're distracted or hesitant. But the moment you wake up and become fully present, you start seeing doors that were invisible before. You notice the conversation that could lead to a business deal. You spot the small detail that turns a good idea into a brilliant one. You sense when it's time to act and when it's time to wait, not because of fear, but because of intuition. And intuition works best when your mind is clear and alert, not buried under layers of unawareness. The truth is, you can't speed up if you don't know you're going slow. Awareness is the moment you realize that the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not fixed, it's flexible. It can be shortened dramatically if you stop operating on unconscious patterns and start consciously directing your actions. This is why two people with the same resources, same background, and same opportunities can end up in completely different places in life. One notices when they're slipping into comfort and they correct it. The other stays unaware and wonders why nothing changes. When you train yourself to be aware, you catch the subtle mental habits that keep you slow. You notice when you're procrastinating not because the task is difficult, but because you're afraid of failing. You notice when you're overthinking a decision because you're hoping for perfect certainty, which doesn't exist. You notice when you're working on low-priority things just to avoid the high-impact action that would actually move you forward. And because you notice, you can stop. You can replace those patterns with new ones. You can shift from slow motion to full speed simply by removing the brakes you didn't even know you were pressing. Awareness is not about judging yourself. It's about understanding yourself so deeply that you can steer your own ship instead of drifting with the current. It's about catching yourself in the act of going slow and deciding in that moment to move faster. It's about refusing to let unconscious habits steal your potential. Because once you see the truth of how you've been operating, you can't unsee it, and that vision gives you the power to change everything. And the moment you begin to live with that level of awareness, you naturally begin to accelerate, not because someone pushed you, but because you finally realized you were the one holding the brake. All along your mind is the most powerful engine you will ever have, yet most people use it as if it were a parking brake. They let fear, doubt, worry, and past disappointments press down on that brake so hard that their potential never reaches the speed it's capable of. The truth is, your external progress is always a reflection of your internal programming. If your mind is cluttered with negative feelings, it doesn't matter how much talent, intelligence, or opportunity you have. You'll move through life slower than someone with average skill, but a clear, focused mindset. The engine has unlimited capacity, but when the brakes are on, you barely move. Negative feelings are not just emotions, they are mental commands that tell your body and actions what to do. When you feel uncertain, your actions hesitate. When you feel fearful, your steps become smaller. When you feel unworthy, you unconsciously avoid opportunities that could help you grow. Your mind will always try to protect you from perceived danger, but if you don't direct it, it will also protect you from growth. This is why people who live in a constant loop of negative thinking find themselves stuck in the same situations for years. They're unknowingly running on mental brakes while wondering why their life isn't moving forward. The way to break free from this is to understand that your thoughts are not random. They are patterns. Patterns that have been shaped by your environment, your upbringing, your past experiences, and most importantly, your own acceptance of those thoughts as truth. If you have been conditioned to believe that life is difficult, that success is rare, that you're not good enough, or that you'll probably fail, those beliefs become the blueprint that your mind follows, and just like an engine can't run at full power when clogged, your mind can't produce results when those limiting beliefs are blocking the flow of possibility. What you think about consistently creates an emotional state, and that emotional state determines your energy, your decisions, and your actions. If you wake up thinking about what could go wrong today, your body will respond with tension, your decisions will be cautious, and your actions will be hesitant. On the other hand, if you wake up thinking about what you can achieve today, your body responds with energy, your decisions are bold, and your actions are purposeful. This is not wishful thinking. It's the way the human mind and body work together. Emotion controls motion. You down, they partnering toward your perception. When you're in a negative state, problems seem bigger, opportunities seem smaller, and risks seem more dangerous than they actually are. You might see a chance to advance in your career, but instead of acting, you overthink all the ways it could fail. You might want to start a business, but instead of researching and planning, you sit in a loop of what-ifs until the moment passes. These feelings trick you into believing that hesitation is safety, when in reality, hesitation is the silent killer of progress. It's important to understand that your mind doesn't care about truth. It cares about repetition. Whatever you feed it most often becomes what it accepts as reality. If you constantly tell yourself you're unlucky, unprepared, or undeserving, your mind accepts that as fact and acts accordingly. But if you repeatedly tell yourself that you are capable, resourceful, and adaptable, your mind will begin to align your actions with that belief. The key is to consciously replace the thoughts that slow you down with thoughts that speed you up. This is where mental discipline comes in. You cannot afford to let every thought that enters your head take root. Just because a negative feeling shows up doesn't mean you have to obey it. You can choose to interrupt it, replace it, and redirect it. This takes practice, but over time, you train your mind to run without the constant drag of fear and self-doubt. Think of it as upgrading your mental operating system. You're removing outdated, harmful programs and installing ones that make your engine run at peak performance. Many people underestimate how quickly life can change when the mind shifts from brake to engine. They think progress is all about external action, working harder, putting in more hours, taking more steps. While action is crucial, the speed of your results is always determined by the speed of your thinking. If your thoughts are slow, careful, and fearful, your actions will mirror that. But if your thoughts are sharp, decisive, and confident, you'll move in a way that produces results faster. The world responds to energy, and the fastest way to change your energy is to change your dominant thoughts. Even physical obstacles often have a mental root. If you say you don't have time, the truth is you're prioritizing in a way that reflects your mindset. If you say you don't have the resources, the truth is you're not thinking creatively enough to find solutions. If you say you're waiting for the right moment, the truth is you're letting fear disguise itself as patience. These are all forms of mental braking. The moment you catch them, you can release them and step on the accelerator. Your mind is the control center of everything you do. Every plan, every goal, every action starts as a thought. If those thoughts are weighed down by negativity, they will produce slow, inconsistent results. If those thoughts are driven by clarity and belief, they will produce fast, powerful results. The challenge is to make the shift deliberately. Don't wait for external conditions to motivate. You decide to motivate yourself internally. That's how you turn your mind from a brake into the ultimate engine that pulls you forward with unstoppable momentum. Indecision is the silent thief that robs more people of their potential than failure ever will. Most people think the danger lies in making the wrong choice, but the real danger lies in making no choice at all. Every time you hesitate, every time you say, "I'll think about it," every time you wait for absolute certainty before moving forward, you're losing time, and time is the one thing you can never get back. The habit of delaying decisions is like putting your life in neutral. You may feel safe because you're not moving, but the truth is you're being overtaken by those who have the courage to act. The fastest way to change the direction of your life is to start making decisions quickly and firmly. This doesn't mean being reckless or ignoring information. It means training yourself to trust your judgment enough to commit. People who achieve extraordinary results have one thing in common: they decide quickly and they follow through. They don't waste weeks weighing every possible outcome because they understand that speed itself is an advantage. The longer you delay, the more doubts creep in, the more fears grow, and the more momentum you lose. Indecision is often disguised as being careful or playing it safe, but in reality it's fear in a polished mask. It's the fear of failure, the fear of judgment, the fear of the unknown. And the more you feed that fear by avoiding decisions, the stronger it becomes. Life is full of uncertainty, and there is no decision you can make that will come with a 100% guarantee. Waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect conditions is just another way of staying stuck. Progress is made by those who act while others are still analyzing. When you commit to a decision, something powerful happens. You activate your mind in a completely different way. A clear decision sends a signal to your brain that says, "This is where we're going," and your mind starts finding ways to get you there. Your focus sharpens, your awareness of opportunities increases, and you begin to notice solutions that you wouldn't have seen before. But this only happens when you take that leap and choose. Without a decision, your mind stays scattered, chasing different possibilities but committing to none, which means you end up with half-finished ideas and no real results. Every great achievement starts with a decision. Every business, every invention, every personal transformation began because someone said, "This is what I'm doing," and then refused to back down. On the other hand, countless dreams have died because someone kept waiting, kept hesitating, kept thinking there would be a better time. That better time never came, and it never will, because the only time you truly have is now. Decision is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Without crossing it, you will always be stuck on the same side. One of the most liberating truths you can embrace is that you can always adjust your course after you start moving. People get stuck because they think, "What if I make the wrong choice?" But in most cases, a wrong choice can be corrected far easier than no choice at all. If you start down one path and realize it's not working, you can pivot. But if you stand still, nothing changes and there's nothing to correct. Movement creates clarity, and clarity comes from doing, not just thinking. The habit of making quick, firm decisions also builds self-trust. Every time you make a choice and follow through, you reinforce the belief that you can handle whatever comes next. That belief is priceless because it frees you from the constant need for external validation. You no longer wait for someone else to tell you it's the right time. You decide it's the right time and act accordingly. This independence is one of the greatest accelerators in life because it keeps you from being slowed down by the opinions and doubts of others. Decisiveness also sends a powerful message to the world. People are naturally drawn to those who know what they want and are willing to go after it. Opportunities, partnerships, and resources tend to flow toward people who act with clarity and confidence. In contrast, indecision repels these things because it signals uncertainty and unreliability. If you can't commit to your own choices, why should others commit to helping you? The world rewards decisiveness with momentum, and momentum is the force that carries you past obstacles that stop others in their tracks. To become more decisive, you must train yourself to make choices based on principles and priorities rather than fleeting emotions. If you know your values and your goals, decisions become much simpler. You just choose the option that aligns with them the most. The reason many people hesitate is because they haven't defined what matters to them, so every choice feels equally uncertain. But when your vision is clear, your decisions can be fast because you're not guessing, you're aligning. It's also important to accept that making decisions quickly does not mean you'll never make mistakes. You will make mistakes, everyone does, but mistakes made in motion are infinitely more valuable than mistakes made in stagnation. When you're moving, you're learning, adjusting, and gaining experience that will make your next decision better. When you're stagnant, you gain nothing but frustration and regret. The real cost of indecision is invisible at first. You don't feel the damage immediately. It builds quietly over time. You lose small opportunities here and there, but eventually you look back and realize years have passed without you making the moves you dreamed of. You realize the life you wanted could have been yours if only you had chosen faster. That's why cultivating decisiveness is not just a skill. It's a necessity for anyone who wants to live fully and move toward their destiny with speed and power. Your actions are always a mirror of emotions you carry within. Every single choice you make, every step you take, and every hesitation you allow is influenced by the way you feel in that moment. If your emotional state is heavy, filled with discouragement, frustration, or hopelessness, your movements will reflect that weight. You will move slower. you will hesitate more, and you will approach life with less energy. On the other hand, when you're charged with excitement, gratitude, and determination, your actions naturally become faster, bolder, and more precise. Emotion is the fuel and motion is the result. Change the fuel and you change the speed and direction of your life. Most people underestimate the direct connection between emotion and action. They think they can force themselves to take massive action while still holding onto negative feelings. But that's like trying to drive a car with the handbrake on. You might move, but you'll strain the engine, waste energy, and feel exhausted long before reaching your destination. The truth is, the state of your emotions dictates the quality of your actions. A tired, uninspired state will produce hesitant, average results. An empowered, high-energy state will produce actions that create breakthroughs. The challenge is that emotions don't just appear out of nowhere. They are generated by the way you think and the way you interpret what happens around you. If you dwell on what's wrong, on what could go wrong, or on what has gone wrong before, you generate feelings that slow you down. If you focus on possibilities, on opportunities, and on progress you've already made, you generate feelings that speed you up. The mind feeds the heart and the heart fuels the body. If you want better motion, you must first create better emotion. Consider what happens when someone receives good news, a job offer, a compliment, a financial breakthrough. Their body language changes instantly. Their posture straightens, their voice gains strength, their steps are quicker. The external event triggered a shift in emotion, which then accelerated motion. But here's the key: you don't have to wait for external events to create this shift. You can deliberately change your emotional state in any moment by changing your focus, your thoughts, and even your physical actions. Smile when you don't feel like smiling. Stand tall even if you feel small. Move your body with purpose and your emotions will follow. The most successful people understand that managing their emotional state is not optional, it's essential. They prepare their emotions the same way an athlete warms up their muscles before a race. They use rituals, routines, and mental exercises to prime themselves for peak performance before taking action. They know that entering an important conversation, meeting, or project with a low energy emotional state will produce slow, weak results. So they deliberately build the emotional momentum first, and then they ride that wave into action. Negative emotions, if left unchecked, create a downward spiral. You feel uncertain, so you hesitate. Because you hesitate, you lose opportunities. Losing opportunities makes you feel worse, which makes you hesitate even more. This cycle can go on for years if you don't break it. The way to break it is to interrupt the emotion before it turns into slow or harmful motion. The moment you feel yourself hesitating, stop and ask, "What am I feeling right now, and how can I shift it?" This awareness is the lever that can lift you out of a slow, stagnant state and into a fast, forward, moving one. Emotion is contagious as well. The way you feel influences the people around you, and their reactions then influence you back. If you walk into a room with a defeated, drained energy, you will find that others respond to you with the same energy, which reinforces your negative state. But if you walk in with confidence, enthusiasm, and certainty, you will find that people respond more positively, which reinforces your positive state and keeps you moving faster. This is why leaders in any field must become masters at generating and sustaining empowering emotions, not only for themselves but for everyone they interact with. Your emotional state also determines how you interpret challenges. In a low state, every obstacle looks bigger than it is. A minor setback feels like a disaster, and you overestimate the risk while underestimating your ability to handle it. In a high state, those same challenges look smaller, more manageable. You see them as puzzles to solve rather than walls to avoid. This shift in perception changes your willingness to take action and the speed with which you take it. The faster you act, the more momentum you build, and momentum itself becomes a source of emotional strength. There's also a direct link between gratitude and speed. Gratitude shifts your focus away from what's missing toward what's available. When you're grateful, you're not weighed down by the feeling of lack. You're energized by the awareness of what you already have to work with. This makes you more creative, more resourceful, and more willing to take bold steps forward. A person operating from gratitude will move faster toward their goals because they're not waiting for the perfect conditions, they're using what's in front of them right now. It's easy to think that emotion is something you simply experience, but the truth is, emotion is something you generate. You can influence it at will, and in doing so, you influence the speed and quality of your actions. This requires self-awareness, discipline, and a willingness to take control of your inner world. When you wake up in the morning, you decide consciously or unconsciously how you're going to feel. That choice then determines how you're going to move, and the way you move determines how quickly you will close the gap between where you are and where you want to be. The relationship between emotion and motion is unbreakable. You cannot separate the two. If you want to move faster in life, you must stop trying to force your body to act while leaving your emotions in a negative state. You must become the architect of your feelings, deliberately building the emotional foundation that will carry you forward with speed, confidence, and power. When you learn to do this, you stop relying on temporary bursts of motivation and start operating from a consistent inner drive that keeps you moving, no matter what's happening around you.